Hello, Internet. It is I, Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Recap. So, December 2024, the final month of 2024. How did it go? Well, it went about as well as I thought it would, which isn't good because I expected very few hits and a whole lot of misses. And that's exactly what I got. Because you can literally count the number of really successful December movies on one hand. Actually, not even a whole hand, like a Ninja Turtle three-fingered hand, pretty much. Everything else was either a disappointment or a bomb. So, it's pretty much a repeat of December 2023, except that month was just a tad more interesting. So, yeah. And now we're going to go over the month. So as usual, I'm going to be comparing my own personal predictions to what actually happened. And let's get started. So actually, before we get to the December 6th movies, I want to talk about two movies real quick that I didn't make videos for. One of them is Pushpa The Rule Part 2. I didn't make a video on this because I usually don't cover movies like this. But, I mean, it did okay. It did a whole lot better than movies actually opened on December 6th. But, I mean, it opened like 4.8 million, ended up making like 13 million total. I mean, for like a Bollywood or Tollywood, whatever they're calling it, a type of foreign movie, I say this run is rock solid. So, yeah, just want to mention that. And then another thing is the 10th anniversary re-release of Interstellar. I didn't cover this because it wasn't a wide release. And I don't do limited releases on this channel, so I didn't make a video on it. But I was really impressed with how Interstellar did, in its re-release, because it was only on IMAX, and as you see here, only like 165 theaters, 321 theaters, not a whole lot of theaters, but it did great. It was a number 6 and 7 in like in this small amount of theaters. That's really impressive. But literally, this number is better than any of the movies I actually talked about that weekend. So that should tell you quite a lot. And it's 2-week re-release. It pretty much added about I'm gonna say a good 15. I'm trying to do the math. 187, 203, a good 16 mil to its final total. So now it's over 200 million. It's a lifetime total. And I guess this is the power of Christopher Nolan. Even a movie that not even his best received movie, although I believe it's got a reappraisal over time. Even a movie that people were like, well, expectations were super high for it because this was right after Inception and Dark Knight Rises, so expectations were sky high. Didn't quite hit those expectations, but it still was a hit. So the fact that a re-release of this can do as well, even like way better than pretty much, well, except for the Coraline re-release and the other re-release I covered in 2024, it says a lot. It says a whole lot about the power of the Nolan brand. So, yeah, wanted to talk about those two. Now we talk about the December 6th movies. First, we have The Return. I predicted an opening weekend of like less than 500K, final total less than $1 million or something like that. Open with 361K, had a short life, made 700K, and that's it. Not surprised, had no marketing whatsoever, so again, who's surprised by this result? And now we move on to Solo Leveling Reawakening, which was basically, if I recall, like a prelude to like the second season of the anime. Basically, it was a prelude you had to pay for. So, yeah. But I predicted an opening weekend of like 500K, something like that, and the final total like less than $1 million because anime movies are historically front loaded. And it did a lot better than that. Granted, we're still talking low numbers, but it still did better. Like 2.4 million. So it pretty much shot past my predictions, opening weekend and total. And apparently only made like 3.3 million total domestically. I tried looking up to see if there's like any other numbers, but apparently there's not. So yeah, but compared to my rock bottom expectations, I mean, it could have been a lot worse. So there's that. So what's next? Werewolves. I predicted an opening weekend of like 1 million, final total of like less than 2, and what do you know? That's exactly what happened. Open with 1 million, made less than 2 million. Not surprised. We're gonna move on. Y2K. I thought this had the best chance to succeed out of all the movies that came out that weekend. It's from A24. I thought the premise was interesting. I believe I saw a trailer for this in front of Heretic, and I'm like, okay, that's something. Maybe you could find like some hipster crowd audience or something. No. That's where like that word of mouth kicked in and pretty much killed its run before it even began. But anywho, I predicted an opening weekend of 2 million, final total by less than 4. That's pretty much what happened. Open with like 2.1 million. And it had a rough second weekend, and it just disappeared. Never saw it again. I doubt it made no more money after that. Probably made like a few $100. Let's be real. So yeah, this big old L for A24. So not great for them, but they had The Brutalist and Babygirl later in the month, so they end up everything turned out okay in the end. But considering who starred in this movie, Rachel Zelger, who's going to be, the new Snow White and the new Snow White movie coming in March, I feel like this might be a bad omen for that movie. But granted, that Snow White movie, that's encircling the drain for a while. That thing is doomed to be a catastrophe. But a flop like this doesn't help at all. So, yeah. Yeah, so that was December 6th. A complete waste of time. And you think things will like improve substantially after that. Things would, because the beginning of December is historically real slow. Although 2023, it was a lot more going on. I mean, you had Godzilla -1, you had the Renaissance Beyonce movie, then you had Boy and the Heron, all doing all right for themselves. But 2024 is like, nah. And so December 13th, you expect things to get better. They do, but they don't at the same time. Because, December 13th, that was a loss. An absolute loss. I mean, you got Kraven, War the Rohirrim, whatever it is. Both did awful. But Kraven got way more attention for not only doing awful, but being awful at the same time. So Kraven the Hunter. Oh my god. Okay. Where do I start with this thing? First of all, before I even get to... Actually, I'll talk about the box office first, and then I'll tell you my full opinion on this movie. But box office wise, I never thought it was going to do great for a long time. I mean, this movie was like bouncing around the calendar. This was supposed to come out in October of 2023. I remember it had a trailer and everything. It was set to come out. It was supposed to come out 2 weeks before Spider-Man 2 on PS5. I'm dead serious. So it's going to come out the same month as that game. So you literally would have had like 2 versions of Kraven at the same time, one being infinitely better than the other. I don't think I need to tell you which Kraven that is. But then the writers and actor strikes happened, and Sony was like, nope, can't do that. So they pushed it to 2024. It's supposed to come out like late August. And I thought it was coming out, but they're like, no, we're going to push it again to December. I was like, damn it. just release already. And like they gave out like such bullshit excuses. They're like, they're so excited about it, and like they want to give it like the best chance. I'm like, no, stop lying. It's literally like that meme, that song, like, why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? It's like that. That's what pretty much I imagine everyone said to Sony. So yeah, the trailers for this movie never looked like that good. It was one of those stupid anti-hero movies where the anti-hero, well, first of all, Kraven's a villain. He's always been a villain, but this movie was like basically made him a hero, and boy, people do not like that. It really ticks people off. And so, hype for this movie was non-existent, and Sony knew this, which is why they made the call to release like the first 8 minutes of the movie online in an attempt to garner some to get some attention. That was the whole point. They get attention, and I guess theoretically, have people watching, people who are on the fence be like, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a shot. Like, I imagine that was the plan. Didn't work because the thing flopped. Like the whole stunt flopped because I checked this view count. It was like 2.3 million views. Like, that's pathetic. I've seen movies where they have like the first 10 minutes do like way better than that. Like, it's just pitiful. So yeah, that ploy failed. And then reviews came out. They were ass. Just absolute, just rock bottom reviews. And so everything was going against Kraven. Literally everything. So my prediction was 11 to 12 million and final total like 25 to 30 million. And I knew that word of mouth was going to, like, first of all, there was already critic reviews. Once that audience reaction came out, this thing got a C cinema score. A C. That's worse than Morbius and Madam Web, which shocked me. So, yeah, I knew it was game over. And it was, in fact, game over. It only opened with like $11 million. Like, there are not too many big superhero movies I can name that that performed worse than this. And that was just opening weekend. Then second weekend, it just tanked, predictably. Fell 72%. And then Christmas helped it, but it slowed the bleeding down a bit, but at that point it didn't matter. It was dead. It died the moment it released. And now it's made like 24 million. It won't go any farther than that. It won't go any farther than that. So it made 24 million total. 59 million worldwide. Fucking disaster. I seriously can't name any like big superhero movies that did worse. I can't. Off the top of my head, I can't name one. Maybe Steel from the 90s, but that's kind of it. Maybe Elektra. I'm struggling to remember any more. I guess that weird Punisher movie from like '08, Punisher Warzone. But the list is very small. I mean, this is way worse than some of the most notorious superhero flops out there, like Fan Four Stick, Dark Phoenix, Joker 2, Madam Web, Morbius, freaking The Flash, Shazam 2. And go on and on and on. Green Lantern, another one. So yeah, these numbers are just horrific. I mean, compared to like Morbius and Madam Web, it's so much worse. I mean, Madam Web, 15 million opening. That opened midweek, by the way. 43 million domestic, 100 million worldwide. Morbius, 39 million opening, 73 million total, 162 million worldwide. Look at that compared to Kraven. Look at that. It is just it is so fucked. Beyond belief to do so much worse than those two movies that will forever be known for being memes. Those movies, both Morbius and Madam Web, are more well known for lines that either were never in the movie or were cut out of the final movie than the movies themselves. And Kraven did so much worse than both of them. Like, that is just, I mean, it's fitting, it's appropriate, but damn. And the R rating. This movie was one of those R-rated movies that try to really push it like in your face. It's gonna be all hardcore, and I knew that was gonna backfire because that's only worked a few times. Emphasizing the R rating. That worked for Deadpool. That worked for I think it was a comedy, a Good Boys, because at least they used that to like comedic effect. This was just like all trying to be a hardcore and edgy, and it just no. Expendables tried the same thing, didn't work for that movie, and it didn't work here either. But now I'm ready to talk about this movie because I watched this movie. Yes, I paid money. I sat my ass down in a theater to watch this because I'm hearing reports. Oh, this is the end of the Sony Spider-Man-less Spider-Man universe. Probably the most embarrassing franchise to ever exist. I was like, if this is it, I might as well watch it go out with a whimper because the sure shit wasn't going to go out with a bang. So I watched it, and man, it sucked. It was trash. I was bored. Most of it. Legitimately bored. I was struggling to care about anything. Like, I was hoping something exciting would happen, and it never really did. I mean, well, there was like an okay-ish chase scene, but the final fight was just a CGI mess where shitty CGI Rhino, he was killed by like a stampede of buffaloes or whatever, and that's how he died. I was like, wow, okay. And Aaron Taylor Johnson's Kraven, I mean, he tried, but it just wasn't Kraven. I wasn't feeling Kraven. Like Spider-Man 2 Kraven on PS5, that's a Kraven. Okay, that dude had a presence. He was a badass. And when you saw him on screen, you're like, oh shit. I never felt that once with Aaron Taylor Johnson's Kraven. So that was a problem. And just the whole movie, the ADR, holy shit. I mean, you thought it was bad with Madam Web and Ezekiel Sims. It was even more glaring here. There are times where you can see clear as day that the words you're hearing are not coming out of the characters' mouths as they talk. Like, it's so obvious. I was just like, bro, where's the quality control? Like, holy shit. And then there's a line that I kind of overlooked when I first watched it, but then everyone was talking about it afterwards, and I realized, oh damn, that was really said. Okay. The line is from Kraven's love interest, I guess. I don't know. Calypso. And like there's a whole thing with her grandma during like this super long flashback. Goes on for I don't even know how long, like 20 minutes or something. Goes on way too long. But with her grandma, the way Kraven got his Kraven power is that, a lion, well, he was out in Africa with like his brother and his dad, Russell Crowe. Lion attacked him. Lion almost killed him. And then with a mix of lion blood and then Calypso's grandma's like potion, that gave Kraven his abilities. And so Kraven's just like, I need some of that potion. I want to know how it works. But then Calypso says with no emotion at all, she says, and I quote, my grandmother died and I never saw her again. And I was like, yeah, no shit. Of course you wouldn't see her again. She's dead. Why even say that? And the lack of emotion made it even worse. And then that's not even the weirdest part. Rhino. Well, this is movie's version of Rhino. First of all, Rhino, from what I know, it's just like a dude in a suit, either like a rubber suit or like a skin tight suit or like a robot suit. But this movie is just like an actual CGI Rhino, and it's just weird. But there's a moment in the movie where I was baffled because one of the henchmen was giving him like some bad news, and you expect him to like yell about it and be like, God damn it, or something like that. But no, he lets out this noise. I still can't really describe what it was. It was a strange sound that came out that I never heard before, and I was just like, what the fuck was that? Like, I was so confused. And then now afterwards, like everyone else was like talking about it because how bizarre it was. And I was just, it was so weird. So weird. And then this movie committed the cardinal sin of showing like final moments of the movie in the goddamn trailers, which really pisses me off. Like, it showed one of the scenes with like Kraven's brother, Chameleon. Oh, spoiler alert if you give a shit. I know you don't. But his brother Like, it's talking about in the trailer. I thought it was just some random gangster where he's like, "Oh, you're just a man hunting for another trophy." I thought it was just some random dude. That was his brother at the end of the movie, and I was like, "Huh?" So that caught me off guard. And then the final scene in the movie, the part of the trailer where Kraven is like sitting down with his like fur vest, sitting in his pose. This pose you see right here, this never happens in the movie, by the way. You never see that. But this pose right here in the trailer, you think that's gonna lead to something, right? He's gonna lead to like a final battle where he has like the coat and the fur vest and fights like Rhino or something. No. The scene, this, where he like sits down in front of a mirror, that is the final fucking shot of the movie. And I was like, are you kidding me? So people hated that, obviously, because who wouldn't hate that? And there's a part in the trailer where Kraven with his fur vest, he has like this torch, like he's in a cave or something. That never happens. Never. I was looking for it. Never appeared once. And I was just like, wow. Okay, we're just pulling another Morbius again, showing shit in the trailer that never made to the final cut. So yeah, Kraven is a disaster. I think it's worse than Madam Web. At least Madam Web, I laughed at that movie. That movie gave me some unintentional comedy. This never gave me that, really. Beside a few weird moments, it just never gave me that sense of fun. But I'd rather watch this over Joker 2. Joker 2 just pissed me off and was just a miserable time. But Kraven, I say it's worse than both Morbius and Madam Web because those had meme value. Both of those movies had some incredibly goofy moments. This just didn't have that same level of goofiness, so it's not even like a fun bad movie. It's just bleh. And don't even get me started on the head of Sony, at least the head of Sony Pictures. This man really went out there, was talking about Kraven and Madam Web, and he said, "Oh, these movies. The reason why these movies flopped, it's not because they're bad movies. No, it's because the press, those darn critics, done trashed them, bullied them for no reason." And I was just like, Are you for real, my guy? Are you really saying this? Like, he refuses to accept the movies are just objectively ass. They're just not good. They're not well-made movies. But he doesn't believe that. He believes they're probably 10 out of 10 movies. And it's just everyone else's fault that the movie flopped. And it was just so diluted and so just... I couldn't believe it. So yeah, I had to mention that because that was just wild to me. But yeah, Kraven the Hunter, huge bomb. In terms of like big superhero movies, it's probably the worst performing one I've ever seen. Except like a couple I've mentioned before, but even then they weren't as expensive. This cost over $100 million, so looks a whole lot worse. So yeah, Kraven disaster. Rest in piss, Kraven, and rest in piss, Sony Spider-Man-less Spider-Man universe. Because when I heard it was like the end, I was like, thank God, please end this train wreck. Just focus on Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland and Beyond the Spider-Verse. Just focus on those, please. So, yeah, that was Kraven. Now we talk about War of the Warham. I predicted an opening weekend of like 5 to 6 million. Final total like 15 to 20 million. Because I had no idea how this movie was going to do. I mean, it's based on Lord of the Rings, one of the most recognizable IP out there. That trilogy, in the, Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King. That's like one of the most iconic trilogies ever made. Return of the King was like the height of Lord of the Rings. That was the second movie ever to make $1 billion. That thing won like 11 Oscars. Like that was the peak. And after that, it took a tumble. But it's still popular. It still has legions upon legions of fans. But the thing that I knew would hurt this movie was the fact that not only was it like way in the past, even more than The Hobbit, it says 183 years before, the trilogy. So you have no recognizable characters at all. And the fact that it was an anime, wasn't even live action, it was an anime, that I knew its appeal was going to be very narrow. It's going to be very, like, super specific. So, like, and when you do that, obviously you're kind of, what's the way to say it? It's, by making it too narrow, you are, like, shutting out a whole lot of people from enjoying it or, like, giving it a chance. And so, yeah, I made my prediction and it released. It did a lot worse than I anticipated. Only opened by 4.5 million. Its legs are just terrible. Look at that. The 70s, the 60s, it just died. It was literally a VOD literally 2 weeks after it released. It was probably for the best because why keep it in theaters longer? Nobody was watching it. You're gonna have a shit ton of empty screenings. So why keep it there? And it ended up making only 9 million domestically, 19 million worldwide on a budget of 30 million. So that's a yikes. I mean, it's not as bad as like Kraven, but it's still terrible considering the IP. So like, reviews and word of mouth didn't really help things either. So that also did the movie in. And not to mention the Lord of the Rings IP, as I mentioned, it took a tumble. The Hobbit was successful, but it was kind of divisive. And then Amazon's brings a power show that's kind of viewed as a meme. It gets mocked online all the time. So, yeah, the Lord of the Rings IP has seen better days. And there's the fact that this movie was only made so that New Line Cinema can keep the rights to the franchise so they can make other movies, which are coming out like in a few years. So that should tell you what the real priority was right there. It wasn't to make a great movie. It was to just make a movie to just keep the rights. So it's literally what Fox did with Fantastic Four back, before it was swallowed up by Disney. And the same thing with like Sony and their Spider-Man movies. They gotta make movies to keep the rights. Same thing. And when you only make something just to keep the rights, it never goes well. Never. So, yeah, War of the Warham, total flop. So yeah, December 13th was a yikes. A big old yikes. Let's just say thank God Moana 2 and Wicked made as much money as they did because they really helped to set the first 2 weeks of December out tremendously. Made it a whole lot less depressing. Now we move on to December 20th, and this is where things actually get good. Things actually improve. So, well, not really with Homestead, though, so let's talk about that first. So, Homestead. I predicted an opening weekend of like 5 million, final total of like 20, 25 million, something like that. Well, it hit like 6 million opening weekend. Its legs have been real, like whatever. And so far it's made 18 million. Oh, probably, wait, let me look at its Friday numbers. Yeah, it could squeak by 20 million, but it won't be by much. It won't go any further than 20. But yeah, this run doesn't surprise me. It's from Angel Studios. They have pretty much become a one-hit wonder at this point. That one hit being Sound of Freedom. Every other movie before or since hasn't even come remotely close to that result. I don't even think any of them hit like 20 mil. So, yeah, that's not great. And there's also the fact that a lot of people felt like they got scammed when they watched this movie because this really wasn't a movie per se. It was a disguised pilot for a TV show. And they didn't bother telling anyone about that. And then at the end of the movie, they're just like, oh, I think there's like a QR code on the screen where it's like, you can like use this to give someone else like a ticket to go see it, which the Angel Studios is known for doing. They did this with Sound of Freedom, and some people kind of view it as kind of scummy, kind of like fraudulent in a sense, because you're saying like, oh, you're making like all this money when you're really not. It's kind of, you're artificially increasing your box office, because like I remember seeing like a billboard for this, and like on the billboard, oh, theaters selling out world nationwide. I was like, yeah, I don't think so. I doubted that, and because these numbers right here don't exactly scream sellout. So yeah, and I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised by this result. It's just, I mean, it did better than Bonhoeffer like in November, where it had like that movie opened the same weekend as Glicked, Gladiator 2 and Wicked, and Homestead opened the same weekend as Mufasa and Sonic 3. So Homestead did better at least, but yeah, still not very good. So we move on to Mufasa the Lion King. Ugh, this movie that did not need to exist at all, but they made it anyway. So now I had two thoughts of this movie when it came to its box office. On one hand, this is the Lion King. This is like Disney's, feels like their golden goose. I mean, the first Lion King, the original, was such a insane success back then. Is like the crown jewel of the Disney Renaissance. And then the 2019 remake, despite it not being reviled, it made a shit ton of money. It made like $1.6 billion. So obviously the Lion King brand would help this thing, but at the same time, this again 2019 Lion King, people didn't like it. So when you make a sequel or anything after like an installment that people don't like, chances are the next movie isn't gonna do too hot. There's been quite a few examples of this. I mean, Tomb Raider, like OG Tomb Raider, the OG Tomb Raider movies. Like the first one was a hit, but was negatively reviewed. Second one comes out, even though it's better reviewed, did way worse. Same thing happened with the Bay Turtle movies, the Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movies. So like, and I guess Suicide Squad, the same with that as well. Like with Suicide Squad and the Suicide Squad, although that had HBO Max to deal with and whatnot, and COVID, but still, even without those, it would have done worse. So I thought Mufasa would fall into that camp, and it did. And so my opening weekend was it was a 35 million and a final total of like 150 to 250 million. I think it was a very wide range. And it hit 35 million. A lot of people immediately wrote it off as a flop because, I mean, let's compare this to 2019 Lion King. That opened with 191 million. So that versus 35 million, that's quite the drop off, to say the least. And everyone was like roasting it, mocking it, be like, ha ha. But, those Christmas legs saved its ass, dude. Like, it started out so far behind Sonic, but once Christmas rolled in, it was able to be more competitive to the point where it went up a bit in its second weekend. And the third weekend actually became number one at the box office. And I remember there being like a lot of controversy about it being number one, like Disney was having ads being like, number one movie in America, and people just like, what? Oh no, because the weekend showed Sonic 3 ahead of it. And so there's like this war going on, like this battle. And some people thought there may have been some foul play going on with the reason why it did so well over Christmas. Apparently people say, Disney was bullying theaters. I don't know how true that is, so I'm kind of taking it with a grain of salt. But yeah, there was a lot of discourse around the Mufasa Sonic 3 war. Let's just say that. And now it's made 178 million. It will surpass 200 million at least. And it's made almost 500 million worldwide on a budget of 200 million. That's not terrible. It's not a flop per se on its own, but this is the motherfucking Lion King. As I said, Disney's golden goose. I mean, look at the other two Lion Kings. The original, almost a billion. Lion King 2019, 1.6 billion. So they'll only make like 500, 600 million at most. That is rough. That is terrible for the brand. Absolutely terrible. And yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch the 2019 Lion King movie, that movie either. The only Lion King movie that really exists to me is the original and maybe the direct-to-DVD movies, but these photorealistic Lion King movies, these aren't it. They don't exist in my brain. They don't exist in my reality. So yeah, the fact that this movie underperformed
It puts a smile on my face because these movies never should have existed in the first place. So to see people like reject it, like it warms my heart. And I feel like this should be a warning sign to Disney with all their later remakes or reimaginings of like their animated movies. Like the Snow White movie, that's gonna bomb. That's gonna be a huge flop when it comes out. Lilo and Stitch, that should do better, but I'm not sure if it'll be a huge hit. But yeah, people just are just done with these movies. They're just over them. Like they're fine with sequels, like animated sequels, judging by the box office for Inside Out 2 and Moana 2. But these like, well, I know this isn't a live action movie, but it gets kind of thrown into the pile with all the other ones. But these type of like remakes or reimaginings, people are just done. The public is just over them. And Disney's gonna have to realize that eventually, because otherwise they're gonna have to deal with a whole lot of red ink with people just rejecting these things. So, yeah, Mufasa, it's not technically a flop on its own, but for Lion King standards, it is very much a flop. You know what's not a flop though? Sonic 3. Let's talk about it. So Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I had a lot of, I was very hyped for this thing, first of all. But box office wise, I knew this had the best potential out of any December movie because it's part of a series that, it's that spanned like decades. Like first video games, but then it became movies. Obviously, everyone knows the story about the first Sonic movie, how the original design of Sonic was horrific. The internet said hell no. And the studio were like, okay, we'll fix it. They did. First movie comes out, is a hit. They make a sequel, is a bigger hit. So what do? You make more. You make a third movie. And this one has Shadow the Hedgehog, who's a huge fan favorite, voiced by Keanu Reeves. So a lot of people were very hyped to see him enter the movie verse. And I just felt like it had the best chance. And so opening weekend, I predicted 70 million opening, final total of like, I think it was between 250 and 350. I'll admit, I was a little too overzealous with that final prediction. I kind of went a little overboard because, well, it opened with 60 million, which I still thought was solid. And I thought there would be like a huge boom after Christmas, and that didn't really materialize, but it still did all right. And so now it has made 195 million domestically as of like the 10th of January. So it will very soon surpass 200 million domestically. It's already the biggest Sonic movie in the States, and it will soon be worldwide as well. So, yeah, it's a big hit. I'm glad it did well, and I saw it, and I really, really liked it. And like reviews kind of surprised me; they were way better than the first two movies. But I can kind of understand why, because the third movie, it focuses like less on like non-Sonic elements and more on like actual Sonic elements, like more on Shadow, more on like the lore and all the Easter eggs and whatnot, and less on like the human characters. And it focused a lot on Shadow. And yeah, Shadow was like the ace of the movie. Well, him and like Jim Carrey being both Ivo Robotnik and Gerald Robotnik doing like a dual performance. Like they were like Jim, like and Keanu were the aces, and the movie was just fun. It was just a fun time, and like seeing I'm not gonna spoil it. Well, it's been spoiled enough already online, even before I released it. But you've seen images. Like, if you played some Sonic games, I imagine you got a big old smile on your face when you saw some of the moments in this movie, and especially the end credit scene, because they show off another main Sonic character, and I was like, hell yeah, let's go. It's like about time you showed up. So yeah, they're making a Sonic 4. That should surprise absolutely no one. That's supposed to come out in 2027, so let's go. Road to 2027. And Sonic 3, I would definitely label it as like the big hit, the big winner of December. And sure, technically it will make less money than Mufasa, but
in the grand scheme of things, it'll be the bigger hit because it actually did well compared, compared to its predecessors, compared to Mufasa. So yeah, Sonic 3, it was a hit. I'm glad it's a hit. Really enjoyed the movie, and yeah. So that was December 20th. Now we move on to December 25th. Christmas. We had 4 Christmas movies open on Christmas Day. And first is Babygirl. I predicted I had to do 3-day and 5-day because these all opened on Wednesday. 3-day I was like 2 to 3. A 5-day I was like 7 million, and it's total I think it was like 15-20 million I think. And it had a real blech opening day, but its legs after that were like really good. Like it held on quite well for like the next week. It ended up opening like to 4.4 million, and it only dropped 1% the next weekend. This is post holiday too, so that was real shocking. This weekend its drop will be a little quite a bit harder, but still its legs have been like really good, and it will surpass 20 million at this point, which, considering word of mouth for this movie, I thought it was going to tank after opening day, but it has found an audience, a small little audience, so good for it. And yeah, I mean, considering low expectations, I say it's performed quite all right for itself. So yeah, now we move on to A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic. I predicted, I believe, a 3-day of like 10 to 15, and a 5-day of like 25 to 20 to 25, final 12 like 50 to 70 million, 60 to 80, something like that. And had a nice opening day, like 7 million. They ended up making 11 million for the 3-day, 23 million for the 5-day, and as of right now, the 10th, it has made 47 million. So it will very soon surpass 50 million. And with like awards, if Timothy Chalamet gets like enough awards attention, then this movie could last a bit longer. But I think it will ultimately end up around my 60 to 80 million projection, which is like fine. It's not a terrible result. It's not an amazing result either. It's just fine. Although the budget is like 50 to 70 million, so this movie kind of needs to find an audience outside the States, because if it doesn't, then it's going to be considered a disappointment. But domestically, these numbers are fine. They're just okay. Aggressively okay. And yeah. Next up, we got The Fire Inside. Oof. Like, I thought, like, several weeks in advance, I thought this movie could maybe do well. It feels like the type of movie that could thrive during Christmas, like a nice, like, inspirational sports movie. But man, no one gave a fuck about this thing. There was no marketing whatsoever anywhere. So I knew this movie was cooked right before released. And so my 3-day, I think it was like, I don't even remember. I think it was like somewhere between 2 to 5 million, and its 5-day was like maybe 5 to 10 million. Its final total like 20, I think. I seriously don't remember. And like it did better than Babygirl opening day, and then it just crashed day 2. It pulled a color purple and just fell off the face of the earth. Ended up opening like to 2 million, which is pretty embarrassing for a wide release, especially after Christmas. And second weekend, it was bleh, and then it's game over at this point. It won't even make it to 10 million, which is just embarrassing and kind of surprising, because the reviews for this were really good. You think reviews would help it, but nope. Reviews didn't do a damn thing. This movie died out there. Maybe we'll find an audience when it hits like Prime Video, but yeah, this movie theatrically, it was a total dud. So yeah, and it won't be remembered. And last but not least, Nosferatu. All right, I was hyped for this movie. I saw the trailer, and I was like, it grabbed me. I was like, okay, I need to see this. And I made the decision to watch this on Christmas Day. That's right. I could have just like stayed at my apartment or just, done what, anything else, just be with my family like all day long. But I said, nah, I'm going to watch this movie Christmas Day. And turns out I wasn't alone because quite a few people had the same plan as me to watch this on Christmas Day because it was pretty packed for Nosferatu. Especially, you think like a Christmas movie, like people would be watching something more wholesome, not a gothic vampire movie, but well, yeah. So my prediction for this, I predicted 3-day, I think it was like 10 to 15, 5-day like 25 million, final total like 50 to 60 million, something like that. Boy, this movie popped off. It opened with like 11.5 million on Christmas. I was like, damn, that's impressive. Ended up making 21 million for the 3-day weekend, 40 million for the 5-day weekend. Literally, this made more money in 5 days than the Northman, Robert Eggers' previous movie, made total. And I was like, that is that's a hell impressive. And its run has been pretty good so far. It's maintained a nice amount of momentum, and it's now made 76 million domestically. I don't know if it will hit 100 million. That seems a wee bit ambitious. The fact that it's made it this far is, low key incredible. And yeah, it's definitely a hit. And I saw it and I thought it was really good. It was very atmospheric. Like visually, it's like a 10 for me. Just how everything looked, the setting, just like the overall tone. I was like, hell yeah, this is my jam. The movie is like not afraid to be gross and be real just icky at times, which I do respect. And it was a really interesting movie to watch. I don't know if it was my favorite horror movie of 2024. I feel like that goes to The Substance. The Substance will still be my 2024 movie. But Nosferatu was my first Robert Eggers movie I've ever watched. I think, although I may have watched The Witch. Yeah, I think I did, but that was a long time ago. I don't really remember it. But Nosferatu was the first of his movies I watched in a theater. So watching it, it was really cool. And I'm glad. And Robert Eggers, he's got a lot of momentum right now because Nosferatu was just such a big hit. It just was head and shoulders above the other Christmas movies. So yeah, I'm glad it did well. Glad people watched it. And yeah, that's the end of 2024. So that was December. As I said, wasn't that great. it had a lot of lows, but it had enough high points to not be, totally depressing. But yeah, overall, 2024, it was a rocky year to say the least. Started out bad, got better, got worse, got better, got worse again, and then it ended on a high note. So, yeah. So, at least 2024 had that. And now we're in the middle of 2025 in January. So far, it's not going very good. Mainly because of the movies that are out and just external factors like weather and LA wildfires. So January has been pretty rough, but I feel like it will ultimately be better than 2024's January. So it's got that going for it. But yeah, so that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. You want to check out more videos like this? I got playlists on the homepage. All previous recap videos I made on the channel. You want to watch any of those videos, go right ahead. Oh, I'm going to be making my 2-part 2024 recap, winners and losers. I'll be making that within like the next week or so, or next week or two, I'd say. So stay tuned for that as well. There's also box office predictions where I predict box office for movies. Every movie I covered here, except for a few that I very much said I didn't talk about, I made videos on. So if you want to watch any of those predictions, they're on my 2024 box office predictions playlist, so you can go watch those. It's also the canceled series, 250 episodes about all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't.
You want to binge watch that series, go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.